You're tuned in to Ask the Master Auto Technician. Car questions? Get answers right now. Call 850-763-0555.
James Auto Center, we fix it right, guaranteed. Beep, 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 yeah.
All right, good morning. Welcome to our second part of our show on Tuesday morning. I got Rob Lapham running for Congressional District 2. That's in Florida right here, right where you live in Bay County, all the way down to the city, almost to the city limits of Ocala, and back up south of Tallahassee over to Lake City. Did I say that right, Rob? Is that your district that you're running for office from?
Map that hits the southwest, southeast, northeast corners, and then the northwest corner would be Bonifay in Holmes County. So it's the largest congressional district in Florida, and it's kind of daunting when I have to leave my house to head for just west of Ocala, 360 miles, and give a talk for 20 minutes and answer half-hour questions. And then it's 9 o'clock in the evening, and I have to get home 360 miles away. So it's a challenge sometimes.
No one said running for office was easy, did they?
Well, there are times when I wish I was running for a local or state office that would have less geographic territory.
Now,
but I am pleased to have the opportunity to compete for that Washington seat because there is just so much that needs to be done.
Now, I was reading some of the things that we have, so many different departments. You know, we have so many divisions of government out there. And one of the things is you said we spend way too much, and no matter who's in office, Republican or Democrat, they keep adding to the deficit. They don't believe in actually bringing down, living within our means. And you have said that you plan on trying to do things to change things, such as the Department of Interior or Department of Agriculture. What were you saying about the Department of Agriculture, that we do have a lot of what we call corporate welfare out there, but not all farmers receive corporate welfare out there?
Well, yes, most of them don't.
Right.
I mean, when you look at the Department of Agriculture bill, which is somewhere around $150 billion a year that the U.S. government is spending, that comes out of a farm bill that comes up about every 5 years. It's a multi-year allocation. And subsidies provide over $1 million each for the top recipients. If you're in the government's good graces, you get over $1 million.
Wow. But
the bottom 80% of farmers receive an average of $587 a year, and 60% of farmers receive no subsidies. If elected to Congress, I am going to introduce legislation to eliminate all subsidies. There's no good reason for it. It is simply preferring one group of people over another. And if you are a ConAgra or some of these big agricultural combines, you set it up so that your nominee farmers get all the money, and it's a racket, to be honest with you.
It's another name for cronyism, I think some people say. It's picking the winners and losers. I like you, so you get money. I don't like you, so you don't get any money. Is that kind of what's happening?
Exactly.
Wow,
exactly.
That doesn't sound very equal under the law for all.
It sure doesn't.
It sure doesn't. Okay,
James. Yeah. I was laughing driving all the way home from Orlando from the National Convention. I wonder if I could change.
Sure, please go ahead. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So
please.
The one resolution that was voted on and adopted by the delegates to the Libertarian National Convention at Orlando over the weekend was that one that had everybody cheering and so forth. I'm going to read it to you.
Please do. Yes. Go ahead.
It says, resolved, for jointly guaranteeing an unprecedented wave of interest in political alternatives, for arguably doing more to disentangle voters from deeply held, long-standing political loyalties than we ever could on our own, for opening minds to seek out new ideas of governance, the Libertarian Party awards jointly to Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton a Liberty Outreach Award. And I thought that was wonderful, and all the delegates.
We all did, and it was resoundingly accepted. I just can't. As a matter of fact, there was no discussion or debate about it. They just said, "Bring it right to a vote." Here. Yes, you get the award because we had the largest libertarian convention ever since the Libertarian Party was conceived in 1971. Right at 1,000 delegates were there. We did some changing. Not everyone was happy on who we elected, but I think we have an outstanding slate of officers running for president. We have 2 former governors that are running. Governor Weld from Massachusetts, who will be the vice president, and of course, then we have Gary Johnson from New Mexico. Both of these are ex-governors that have experience in running government, which is a heck of a lot better than what we see on the Republican and Democratic side of the aisle running.
And I'm in full agreement with everything you say. I do hope that the money comes in behind these candidates this time. It's all about exposure.
Yes,
it ought to be about ideas, but we know how the political system works.
Well, and
we will be so much better off with a Johnson Weld ticket than any of the alternatives.
And another thing that they brought out, and we all need to remember, is that politics is local. So your race is just as important as theirs.
More important.
Not in the big picture, but in the local picture for sure. And they ask the voters to put libertarians in Congress, and that is our goal as well. Not only the White House, but Congress.
Well, in the state, we want to also put them in the state as well. We want to put them in the state. We want to be able to put libertarians in every office out there, especially the uncontested. I mean, Rob, I was surprised we have so many uncontested races in Florida for the House. Did you hear what they were talking about? That we have a lot of races around the country that go uncontested for both Republican and Democrat, and we as libertarians should step up and fill that gap and run for office. And you have done just that. You're stepping up to the plate. You're running against the machine out there that, no matter who gets in office, it seems like doesn't make any difference. But that's the machine we have. And it's up to people like yourself and others that run for office to change that. Let me ask you a question. What about, everyone talks about defense. I mean, I hear Neil Dunn and all the Republicans talking about how we need to grow our military. And I just kind of look at them and go, how can we grow it hardly any more than we've already grown it? So can you talk about, is there any waste? Is there any fraud? Do we need a bigger military than we already have? Tell me a little bit about this.
There is, of course, a great deal of waste in the military, as in all government agencies. Let's get to the facts. There are currently, right now, there are four Republicans who are vying for the current second congressional district seat. Mm-hmm. They all met in Panama City sometime in March for a so-called debate. Mm-hmm. Every single one of them said we need a bigger military. That's their position. Not one of them said how much more they intended to spend or where any of the money would come from. They just threw it out, we need a bigger military. Every single one of those four Republican candidates for their primary, August the 30th, every single one of them wants a bigger military. None of them spoke to the facts that today our military, we spend $600 billion a year on our military, which is 3 times more than China spends on its military. Right. And it's 8 times more than the Russians spend on their military. Mm-hmm. It is not a question of inadequate funding. It is a question of leadership and proper allocation of resources. Yes, we have some problems in our military which are not necessarily of their own making. When Congress people insist that on Tyndall Air Force Base, which is, of course, the F-22 Raptor squadrons, right. When the original production run finished, the congressmen supporting the Northrop Grumman, the Lockheed Martin, the builders, and so forth had another run. And Robert Gates, the Secretary of Defense at the time, said, if you gave me $50 billion to spend however I would like, I would not build another single jet. And it is congressional interference and lack of leadership, just spending money like water. We do not need a larger military, and every one of those Republican aspirants for this seat ought to be ashamed of themselves.
Well, it seems like that's a word that I guess they're pandering to the audience, because the low information voter out there thinks we need a stronger military. I've had people come to me all the time and say, hey, James, we need a stronger military. And I say, do you know how much we spend out of our budget for military? How much percentage-wise do we spend out of our budget for the military? Do you have any idea?
It's not quite as large as it used to be on a percentage-wise basis, because healthcare is growing so fast. The largest chunk of our national budget today is actually healthcare. It's the 4 programs: Medicare, Medicaid, CHIP, which is the Children's Health Insurance Program, and of course our favorite ACA, so-called Affordable Care Act, Obamacare.
Right.
Those 4 programs have now actually exceed our Social Security payouts.
Wow.
Those 4 are about $900 billion a year. Social Security is about $800 billion a year, and then comes defense at $600 billion a year. And that has burned up way more than half our budget. I mean, actually, more than three-quarters of our budget. There's very little left for anything other than insurance costs and Social Security and military.
We got about 2 minutes left now. Okay, so we see there's a problem out there. We see there's a problem. We're spending too much. What would you do as a congressman? Do we have any solutions, or just, because everything out here is spend more, spend more, spend more, and I'm going, how can we cut without destroying the military and driving it where we become a third world military nation? We still want to make sure we have military power, but how can we do this effectively without weakening ourselves to the point that we become defenseless, so to speak?
James, there are at least a couple of things. And first of all, there are 15 cabinet-level federal executive departments. Every single one of them performs functions that are not constitutional. Their budgets, all of them, ought to be cut. Upon election to Congress, I will introduce legislation to cut in every single one of those 15 federal departments, including military.
Okay.
We spend so much that we don't need to spend. So I will introduce legislation to that effect. But just as important, a libertarian elected to Congress will have the opportunity, in terms of public exposure, the cable news programs and such, to talk about what needs to be done. Again, not one of the Republican aspirants for this second congressional district seat has uttered one word publicly about cutting the budget. They don't talk about it. They just want to spend. And it is to the detriment of our kids, grandkids, future generations. Their standard of living is going to be reduced considerably by the foolish acts of Congress for the last 87 years. It's terrible.
It does.
I hope.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're right. Go ahead.
I hope folks go up on my website, www.robforcongress.org. That's ROBFORCONGRESS.org, or give me a call. It's on the website. But I would appreciate support and the opportunity to speak, whether it's service groups, Lions, Rotary, Kiwanis, those kinds of things, or veterans groups, or patriot groups. If I have an opportunity to speak to any of these groups and answer specific questions from the audience about how to attack this prolific spending, I would be glad to have that opportunity.
Sounds wonderful. So just to remind everybody, you do have a choice come this November when you go to vote. For Congress, for President, for Vice President, you do have a choice out there. Rob, thank you so much for being on here. That's Rob for Congress, Rob Lapham, Lapham, and you can get him at robforcongress.org if you have any questions or comments. Rob, thank you so much. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
James Auto Center, we fix it right.